Welcome back, listener. Tonight, imagine standing in the quiet snow just outside a small medieval village, where every window glows with a faint flickering fire, and beyond those walls, the cold stretches endlessly into the dark, slow and patient, as if the world itself has forgotten how to hurry. And yet, inside those fragile wooden homes, life continues, quietly, carefully, people moving through the longest nights of the year with almost nothing, just firelight, shared warmth, and the simple, steady will to endure. You don't need to step into that cold. You don't need to feel the hunger or the weight of it. You can remain exactly where you are, warm, safe, simply watching from a distance as this slower world begins to unfold around you. Because tonight we're not just visiting the past, we're drifting gently into it, into a winter that shaped lives in ways both harsh and strangely comforting, where even in the deepest cold, small moments of warmth were enough to carry people through. And as you listen, you may notice something subtle begin to happen, your thoughts softening, your breathing slowing, as if you're matching the rhythm of that distant world, one quiet moment at a time. There is nowhere you need to go now, nothing you need to solve, no urgency waiting for you beyond this moment. And as you settle in, perhaps adjusting your pillow just slightly, or letting your shoulders sink a little deeper into the surface beneath you, you may begin to notice how quiet things can become when you allow them to be. There's a kind of stillness that doesn't ask anything of you. A quiet that feels almost like a soft blanket being laid gently across your thoughts. Not to silence them, but to soften their edges, to let them drift rather than hold on. And in this quiet, you remain just outside that village, not inside it yet, not moving forward too quickly, simply observing, as if time itself has slowed to meet you where you are. The snow beneath your feet feels soft, undisturbed, stretching gently across the ground, and the air carries that familiar hush that only comes when everything is covered, when sound itself seems to settle and rest. You might notice the faint trails leading toward the village, subtle paths pressed into the snow by those who have already passed through, each one quiet, unhurried, leading somewhere warm, somewhere lit by the steady glow of firelight. But there is no need to follow them just yet. You can remain here for a moment longer. The world feels distant in a comforting way, as though everything beyond this place has softened, faded slightly, becoming less urgent, less demanding, like a memory you don't need to hold on to. And as you stand there, you may begin to notice small details, not all at once, but gradually, as they reveal themselves in their own time. A thin line of smoke rising slowly into the evening sky, drifting upward without resistance. The gentle outline of rooftops, each one carrying a light dusting of snow, edges softened, shapes quieted. A door somewhere in the distance opening briefly, then closing again, the movement slow, careful, as though even the people inside are moving in rhythm with the season. Nothing here is rushed. Nothing here needs to be. And as you continue to watch, you may feel a subtle shift, not outside, but within, a quiet easing, as though something in you is beginning to match this slower pace, letting go of the need to move quickly, to think ahead, to hold on to every thought as it passes. You don't need to follow every detail. You don't need to remember anything. Each moment can simply pass, just like the soft fall of snow, arriving gently, then fading just as easily. And in that fading, there is space. Space to rest. Space to drift. Long before the world as you know it now, long before electric light or heated rooms, winters like this would arrive without announcement, settling slowly over the land, shaping the rhythm of life in quiet, steady ways. Days would grow shorter, nights longer, and people would turn inward, not out of fear, but out of necessity, gathering close to whatever warmth they could find. And yet, even in those colder times, there was a kind of comfort that existed alongside the hardship, something small but constant, something that did not disappear, even in the deepest part of winter. You don't need to search for it. You will notice it, naturally, as the story unfolds. For now, you remain here, just at the edge, where the world feels balanced between distance and closeness, between observing and becoming part of it. And perhaps, without even realizing when it begins, you start to drift a little closer. Not in a sudden way, not with intention, just a gentle shift, like taking a slow step forward without thinking about it. The village no longer feels far away. The glow of the windows feels warmer now, softer, as though it is reaching outward, not pulling you in, but simply existing, steady and calm. The paths in the snow seem clearer, the shapes more defined, and somewhere, faintly, there is the quiet suggestion of life continuing inside those walls, not loudly, not urgently, but steadily, patiently, one moment flowing into the next. You may notice you're breathing again, slow, song, even, unforced, as if it has found a rhythm that doesn't need to be guided. And as that rhythm settles, everything else seems to follow. The thoughts that once felt close now drift a little farther away. The sense of time loosens, stretches. There is nothing pressing against you now, nothing asking for your attention. Only this quiet space, this distant winter, this gentle unfolding. And as you take another soft step forward, barely noticeable, almost as if it happens on its own, you find yourself no longer standing apart from the village, but just at its edge, close enough now to feel its presence, its quiet life continuing behind wooden walls and dimly lit windows. You don't need to enter fully. Not yet. There is no need to rush. You can remain here in this in-between space, where everything feels calm, where everything feels held, where the world moves slowly enough for you to simply exist within it, without effort. And as the last light of the day fades gently into night, and the cold settles just a little deeper over the land, the story begins to open itself, not all at once, but slowly, patiently, just as everything does here. And you may follow it, or drift alongside it, or simply rest as it continues on its own. Because whatever you choose, wherever your mind settles, it is already enough. And just ahead, waiting quietly beyond this moment, the long winter begins. As the night settles more fully over the village, nothing changes all at once. It happens gradually, almost too slowly to notice. The last traces of daylight fading into a soft, muted blue, then into something deeper, quieter, until the world is held in a gentle darkness that feels less like an absence and more like a presence of its own. The snow reflects what little light remains, giving the ground a faint glow, just enough to soften the edges of everything. Rooftops, fences, narrow paths, all resting under a thin, quiet layer that seems to absorb sound, turning even the smallest movement into something distant and subdued. You remain just at the edge, still warm, still separate from the cold, as though you are watching through a layer that keeps everything gentle, everything safe. No sharpness, no urgency, only a slow and steady continuation. And somewhere nearby, though not too close, there's the steady presence of firelight, not seen directly, but felt, a quiet reassurance that warmth exists here, that behind those wooden walls, life continues in its own calm rhythm. If you listen closely, you might begin to notice how quiet this world truly is. Not silent, but softened. A faint shifting of snow as it settles. The distant creak of wood adjusting to the cold. A door closing somewhere far off, not abruptly, but with care, as though even that small action has learned to move more slowly in this season. Nothing calls for your attention. Nothing demands that you follow it. Each sound appears gently, then fades, leaving behind a deeper stillness than before. And in that stillness, your mind may begin to follow, not by effort, but by nature. Thoughts becoming less defined, less insistent, like shapes seen through falling snow. Present for a moment, then gone. You don't need to hold on to anything here. Everything is allowed to pass. Everything is allowed to rest. The cold out here remains distant. You can sense it, the way it settles into the air, the way it lingers along the edges of things. But it does not reach you. It does not touch you. It remains part of the world you are observing, not something you need to experience. Instead, there is only a quiet contrast, the idea of cold beyond, and the quiet certainty of warmth somewhere within, a balance that holds steady, never tipping too far in either direction. And as you continue to stand there, or perhaps drift just slightly closer without noticing when it begins, you may find that your awareness softens even more, spreading outward rather than focusing inward, taking in the whole scene without needing to examine any single part too closely. The village is still, not empty, just resting. Each home holds its own small world, its own quiet moments, unseen but present, like many gentle stories unfolding at once, none louder than the others, none needing to be followed. You don't need to enter any one of them. Not yet. For now, it is enough to remain here, where everything exists at a distance, where nothing presses too close. And as this distance holds, there is a sense of safety in it, a quiet understanding that you are not part of the hardship, not part of the struggle, only a witness held gently outside of it all. Your breathing continues, slow and even, almost matching the rhythm of this place, a rhythm that does not change quickly, that does not rush forward, but moves steadily, one moment flowing into the next without interruption. If a thought appears, it can drift. If a feeling rises, it can soften. Nothing needs to stay. Nothing needs to be resolved. The night deepens, not suddenly. Just a gradual shift, like a curtain being drawn slowly across the sky, stars beginning to appear faintly above, distant and quiet, offering just enough light to remind you that the world extends far beyond this small village, far beyond this single moment. And yet, there is no need to follow that distance. You remain here, grounded, still, now, at ease. Somewhere, a faint glow flickers slightly brighter, perhaps a fire being adjusted, a log shifting gently as it settles into place, sending a brief, warmer light through a small window before returning to its steady, calm state. These small changes do not disturb the quiet. They belong to it. They move within it, just as your breath moves within you, naturally, without effort. And as you continue to rest in this space, you may notice that the idea of time begins to feel less defined. Moments no longer feel separate. They blend, flow, day ones, extend gently into one another, creating a sense that nothing is ending, nothing is beginning, everything simply continuing. There's comfort in that, a quiet reassurance that there is nowhere to go next, no next step to prepare for, only this steady presence, this soft unfolding. And as that feeling deepens, you may find that your body settles a little more, your muscles releasing small amounts of tension you may not have noticed before, your shoulders softening, your jaw easing, your breath becoming just slightly deeper without any conscious effort. Everything here invites that. Nothing resists it. The cold remains where it is. The warmth remains where it is. And you remain exactly where you are meant to be, between them, observing, resting, drifting gently along with the slow rhythm of a winter night that asks nothing of you at all. And somewhere within that rhythm, almost too subtle to notice at first, there's the beginning of something more, not a change, not a shift, but a quiet opening, as though the world is preparing to reveal itself a little more closely, to allow you to step just slightly further in, not all at once, not abruptly, but in the same slow, careful way that everything here unfolds. You don't need to move toward it. It will come in its own time, just as the night deepens, just as the quiet settles, just as your thoughts continue to soften, drift, and fade. And as you remain here, suspended gently between distance and closeness, warmth and cold, stillness and quiet life, the village begins to feel less like something you are observing, and more like something you are slowly, naturally becoming part of. Not fully. Not yet, but enough to begin noticing more. Enough to begin seeing beyond the surface. Enough to allow the story, waiting quietly within these walls, to begin revealing itself, one small, unhurried moment at a time. And as that gentle transition begins, without needing to be marked or announced, you may simply follow it, or drift alongside it, or rest as it continues on its own, knowing that wherever you are within this moment, it is already enough. And just beyond this quiet stillness, the deeper world of winter begins to take shape. As you begin to drift just a little closer, the village no longer feels distant or separate. It becomes something you can quietly move within. Not as a visitor who arrives, but as a presence that simply exists there, unnoticed, unhurried, carried along by the same slow rhythm that shapes everything in this winter world. The night has settled fully now, and the sky above stretches wide and clear, a deep, quiet expanse scattered with faint stars that seem to flicker gently rather than shine, as if even they are softened by the stillness below. The air holds that familiar winter weight, not heavy, but full, as though each breath carries a quiet density, a calm resistance that slows everything just slightly. Movement, sound, even thought. And within this quiet, the world continues, not in large or dramatic ways, but in small, steady patterns that repeat without needing to be noticed. Long before this moment, long before these homes stood where they do now, the seasons had already begun shaping the land in ways that no one could control. No one could hurry, only respond to. Winters like this did not arrive suddenly. They came slowly, over years, then decades. The cold lingering just a little longer each season, the summers growing shorter, the harvest less certain, until the rhythm of life itself had quietly shifted. No one called it anything at the time. There were no names for it. No clear beginning or end. Only the gradual realization that winters were becoming deeper, longer, more demanding, not in a way that shocked or frightened all at once, but in a way that settled in, season by season, until it became the new normal. And yet, even as the cold extended its reach, life adjusted. It always does. People learn to store more, to prepare earlier, to rely not just on what they could gather alone, but on what could be shared, exchanged, supported within the quiet network of those who lived close together. You may begin to notice this now, not through direct action, but through small details that reveal themselves naturally as you drift through the village. A stack of firewood placed carefully along the side of a home, each piece cut and arranged with intention, not wasted, not rushed. A narrow path between houses, pressed firm by repeated footsteps, showing where people have walked before, where they will walk again. Each step, part of a quiet pattern that continues without needing to be planned. A faint glow behind a shuttered window, steady and warm, suggesting not activity, not movement, but presence, someone inside, resting, waiting, continuing. These details do not call attention to themselves. They simply exist. And as you notice them, you may find that your mind follows in the same way, not focusing too closely, not holding onto any one image, but allowing each to appear, then soften, then fade into the next. There is no urgency here. No need to understand everything. Only a gentle awareness. The cold outside remains constant. Not harsh. Not aggressive. Just present. It settles into the ground, into the wood of the houses, into the still air between them, shaping everything slowly, persistently, without ever needing to force its way in. And within that presence, there is a quiet balance, because wherever the cold exists, so too does warmth, small, contained, carefully maintained. Inside each home, fires are kept low, but steady, not blazing, not wasteful, just enough to hold back the deeper chill. Just enough to create a space where life can continue without strain. You don't need to enter those spaces to understand them. You can sense them from here. The way the light flickers softly through small gaps. The way the air near those walls feels just slightly different, less sharp, less still. It is enough to know they are there. And as you continue to drift, you may notice how everything seems connected in quiet ways, not through visible lines, but through shared rhythm, shared necessity, shared patience. The village is not a collection of separate lives. It is a single, slow-moving pattern, each part supporting the others without needing to be seen. No one moves quickly here, not because they cannot, but because there is no reason to. The season itself has set the pace, and as you remain within this world, your own pace begins to follow. Thoughts stretching, slowing, softening, as if they too are settling into the rhythm of winter. There's something deeply calming in that, a sense that nothing is expected to change suddenly. Nothing will interrupt this quiet flow. Everything will continue as it is, moment by moment, steady and predictable in the softest possible way. And within that predictability, there is comfort. A quiet reassurance that you can let go. Just a little more. Just enough to feel the difference. You may notice now that even the smallest details feel easier to observe without effort. The faint outline of frost forming along the edges of a wooden fence. The subtle shift of shadow as firelight flickers behind a window. The gentle settling of snow as it adjusts to its own weight, barely making a sound. Each of these moments exists briefly, then disappears, not lost, just completed, making space for the next, and the next, and the next. There is no need to follow them all. You can let them pass, and as they do, your awareness may begin to drift more freely, no longer anchored to any one place, but moving gently through the space, as though carried by the same quiet current that moves through the village itself. Somewhere in the distance, a soft movement, someone stepping carefully across the snow, their presence known only by the faint compression beneath their feet. Then gone again, leaving the surface smooth, untouched, as if nothing had passed at all. Life continues like this, quietly, without announcement, without interruption. And as you remain here, within this slow and steady world, you may begin to feel a deeper sense of calm settling in, not just around you, but within you, as though the boundaries between observation and experience have softened, blending gently into one continuous moment. There is nothing separate now, nothing distant, only this shared stillness, this quiet continuity, this gentle unfolding. And somewhere within that unfolding, without needing to be marked or named, there is a subtle shift beginning, a sense that beyond these quiet patterns, beyond these small details, there are deeper stories waiting, not louder, not more urgent, but richer, shaped by the same winter, the same patience, the same quiet endurance. You don't need to seek them out. They will appear in their own time, just as everything here does. And as you continue to drift, unhurried, at ease, the world opens just a little more, enough to begin revealing the lives that move within it. Not all at once, but slowly, gently, one moment flowing into the next. And as it does, you may simply follow, or rest, or drift somewhere in between, knowing that wherever you are in this quiet rhythm, it is already enough. And just ahead, the deeper patterns of life within this winter begin to softly emerge. As the quiet rhythm of the village continues to unfold around you, the stillness begins to carry something more within it, not a change in pace, not a disruption, but a gentle revealing, as though the surface of this winter world is slowly becoming transparent, allowing you to sense the lives moving beneath it. Nothing begins sharply. There is no clear moment where one thing ends and another starts. Only a gradual deepening, a soft shift from observing the village as a whole to noticing the quiet patterns of daily life that exist within it, steady, repeated, familiar. Somewhere nearby, before the night has fully settled into its deepest stillness, there is movement inside one of the homes, subtle, unhurried, the kind of motion that comes from habit rather than urgency. You do not enter. You do not need to. But you can sense it. The low glow of a fire being gently adjusted, not to grow brighter, but simply to continue, a small shift of wood, a quiet crackle, the steady warmth being maintained with care. This is how most things are done here. Not all at once. Not with excess. Only enough. And that sense of enough seems to shape everything. Earlier in the day, though it now feels distant, the same quiet patterns would have guided each small task, each movement measured not by time but by necessity, by the quiet understanding of what must be done and what can wait. You may begin to imagine it now, not as a vivid scene, but as a soft continuation of what already surrounds you. A morning that never rushed. A slow waking, as the light filtered gently through small openings, pale and diffused by the lingering frost. No sudden starts. No sharp transitions. Only a gradual return to movement. Someone rising from rest, not quickly, but carefully, as though even the body understands the need to conserve warmth, to move without wasting energy. The fire, which had been kept low through the night, stirred back into a steady glow. Hands moving close to it, not for comfort alone, but because warmth is part of survival here. Something tended to, protected, never taken for granted. You may notice how even these small moments feel unhurried. There is no pressure behind them, no sense of falling behind. The day does not demand speed, it simply unfolds. And as it does, each task finds its place within that unfolding. Water, perhaps gathered earlier and kept from freezing, used carefully. Food, simple and measured, not abundant, but enough to continue. Nothing wasted, nothing hurried. And always, beneath it all, the quiet awareness of the season, of the cold waiting just beyond the walls, shaping every decision without needing to be seen. Yet even here, within these small, careful routines, there is a kind of calm. Not comfort in the modern sense, not ease, but a steadiness, a rhythm that holds everything together. And as you continue to drift through this space, you may begin to notice how that rhythm extends beyond any single home. Outside, the paths between houses carry the same quiet signs of repetition, footsteps pressed into the snow, not chaotic, not scattered, but following familiar routes. The same ones walked again and again, day after day. A figure passes slowly along one of these paths, not hurried, not burdened, simply moving from one place to another with the same steady pace that defines everything here. There is no need to follow them. They do not call attention to themselves. They are part of the pattern, and as they pass, the space returns to stillness, just as it was before, as though the movement itself leaves no trace beyond the faint impression in the snow. This is how life continues, not in constant motion, but in quiet intervals, moments of action followed by longer stretches of stillness, each one blending into the next until there is no clear separation between them. And within that pattern, there is something deeply consistent, something that does not change, even as each day passes. The cold remains. The need for warmth remains. The quiet effort to continue remains. But alongside it, something else remains as well. Kind of quiet endurance. Not forced. Not dramatic. Simply present. And as you remain within this unfolding, you may notice how easy it becomes to let your own thoughts follow that same pattern, appearing briefly, then fading, without needing to hold on to them, without needing to resolve them. Everything here allows that, encourages it. Even the smallest details seem to support it. The way the fire settles into a steady burn, not flaring, not fading. The way the air remains still, holding each moment gently in place. The way nothing interrupts, nothing demands more than what is already being given. And after a time, though time itself feels less defined, there is a natural return to stillness again, a soft pause between moments, where everything seems to rest, The figure that passed earlier is no longer visible. The faint movements inside the homes quiet once more. The village settles, not into silence, but into a deeper layer of calm. And here, within this pause, there is a subtle sense of safety again. A quiet reminder that nothing here will suddenly change. Nothing will break this rhythm. Everything will continue as it has been, steady, predictable, enough. You may feel that safety as well. Not as something strong or overwhelming, but as something gentle, constant, like a soft warmth that does not need to be noticed to be felt. And as you rest within it, the world seems to soften even further, edges blurring slightly, sounds fading just a little more quickly, each moment flowing into the next with even less resistance than before. There is no need to follow the details now. You can simply remain, drift, allow the rhythm to carry you. And as it does, as this quiet loop of daily life continues, repeating, steady and unbroken, you may begin to sense that there is more to this world still, deeper layers shaped by the same winter, the same patience, the same quiet endurance, not louder, not more urgent, just waiting. And as that awareness begins to form, gently, without needing to be held, the next layer of this slow, unfolding story begins to move a little closer, ready to reveal itself in the same calm and unhurried way. And you may follow, or simply rest as it arrives. As the quiet patterns of daily life continue, almost unchanged, almost repeating themselves in the same gentle rhythm, there is another layer that begins to settle into awareness, not suddenly, not sharply, but gradually, like the cold itself. It is always there, not rushing in, not announcing itself, simply remaining steady and patient, pressing softly against the walls, resting in the air, lingering in the spaces between moments. And over time, everything begins to move in response to it, not dramatically, not all at once, just small adjustments, small decisions, quiet habits formed without needing to be spoken. You may begin to notice this now, in the way the village holds itself. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is done without purpose. Inside one of the homes, the fire continues to burn, low and steady, never allowed to fade completely, but never pushed too far either. Each piece of wood is added with care, as though it matters, because it does. The warmth it gives is not abundant, but it is enough. Enough to soften the edges of the cold, enough to allow life to continue, slowly, steadily, one moment into the next. Around that small source of warmth, everything gathers, not urgently, not closely packed, just naturally. A quiet center, and you may sense how people remain within its reach, within that space where the cold is held just far enough away. Movements are slower here, more deliberate. Even the smallest actions seem measured, not by time, but by effort, reaching for something, shifting position, adjusting a piece of clothing, all done with an awareness that each movement carries a cost, and so nothing is done without reason. Outside, the cold settles deeper into the ground. The snow no longer feels new. It has become part of the land now, pressed down, layered, familiar. The paths remain where they have always been, not expanded, not changed, only walked again and again, because there is no need to create new ones. And as you drift through this quiet world, you may begin to notice how that same sense of conservation extends beyond movement, into something more subtle. Food follows the same rhythm, never abundant, never entirely absent. Earlier, before night settled in, there would have been small, careful preparations, portions set aside, others saved, nothing rushed, nothing wasted. And now, in the stillness, that awareness remains, not through action, but through presence. A quiet understanding that what exists must last. You don't need to see it clearly. You can feel it in the way nothing feels excessive, but nothing feels completely lacking either. A steady middle, a quiet enough that carries everything forward. And within that balance, there is resilience. Not loud, not declared, simply there, woven into each small action, each decision, each moment of stillness. The cold does not change. It simply continues. And in response, life continues as well, not resisting, not fighting, just adapting. And as you remain within this slow rhythm, you may begin to feel that same quiet endurance settling within you. Thoughts may come, then soften, then pass. There's no need to hold on to them, no need to resolve anything. They move through you as gently as the air moves between these homes. And after a while, though time itself feels less important now, there is a return to stillness again, a deeper pause than before. The fire remains, the warmth remains, the cold remains, all in balance. Nothing pushing too far, nothing falling away. And within that balance, there is safety, not the absence of hardship, but the absence of sudden change, the absence of unpredictability. Everything here moves in a way that can be trusted, a rhythm that continues without interruption. You may feel that now, that quiet trust, that sense that nothing here will demand more from you than simply being present. And as that feeling deepens, your awareness begins to drift more freely, no longer fixed in one place, but moving gently, carried by the same slow current that shapes everything in this winter world. Somewhere in the distance, a faint movement, someone walking along a familiar path, quiet, brief, and then gone again. Stillness returns, unchanged. And as you rest within that stillness, even the idea of cold begins to soften, no longer sharp, no longer distant, just something that exists, understood, without resistance. You are not inside it. You are only observing. Safe, wound, warm, torsion, at ease. And in that space where everything continues quietly, steadily, without urgency, something softer begins to form. Not effort, not survival, but connection. Small, quiet, unspoken. You don't need to reach for it. It will appear, just as everything here does. And when it does, you may simply follow, or drift, or rest. Because just ahead, within the gentle glow of shared warmth, something even calmer is beginning to unfold. As that softer feeling begins to take shape, almost without being noticed, the world does not change, not in any visible way. The cold is still there. The night is still long, the same quiet patterns continue, and yet something within those patterns feels different now. Not warmer exactly, but closer. Inside the same small homes, where the fire continues its low and steady glow, people remain gathered in ways that feel unforced, unspoken, simply natural. No one announces it, no one needs to, but there is a quiet tendency to stay near one another, to share the same space, the same warmth, the same stillness. You may begin to notice this not through words, but through small details. The way someone shifts slightly closer to the fire, and another adjusts without looking, making space without needing to be asked. The way a blanket, worn and simple, is moved just enough to cover more than one person, not as an act of generosity, but as something instinctive, something long understood. Nothing here feels dramatic. Nothing calls attention to itself. And yet, within these small movements, there is a quiet connection that holds everything together. Even in silence, there is awareness. Even in stillness, there is presence. You don't need to hear voices to understand it. If there are words, they are soft, brief, spoken only when needed, and often not at all. What matters more is the sense that no one here is entirely alone, that even in the long stretches of quiet, there is always someone nearby, sharing the same moment. Outside, the cold continues as it always has, steady, unchanging, stretching across the land without interruption. But inside, within these simple walls, Something gently resists that vast emptiness, not by pushing against it, but by creating something smaller, something contained. A shared space, a shared warmth, a shared passing of time. And as you remain here, observing without needing to be part of it, you may begin to feel how natural this closeness is, how it does not require effort, how it does not depend on words or gestures that stand out. It is simply there, just like the fire, just like the quiet rhythm of breathing in the room. One breath, then another. Slow, steady, unhurried. And as that rhythm settles, it may begin to mirror something within you, your own breathing, softening, lengthening, matching the calm pace of this place without needing to try. There's nothing to keep track of, nothing to follow closely. You can let your attention drift in and out, noticing a moment, then letting it go, returning again only when it feels natural. Perhaps someone reaches for a small piece of food, something simple, something carefully saved, and it is shared without ceremony, passed quietly, received without thanks needing to be spoken aloud. Not because it is unappreciated, but because appreciation here does not need to be expressed in obvious ways. It exists in the act itself, in the quiet understanding that everything is held in common, not equally, not perfectly, but gently, enough to carry everyone forward. And within that, there is a kind of comfort that does not depend on abundance, a comfort that comes from continuity, from knowing that the next moment will follow the same rhythm as this one, that nothing sudden will interrupt it, that nothing sharp will break through. And as that sense of continuity deepens, your awareness may begin to loosen even further, thoughts becoming lighter, less defined, like shapes seen through soft light, present for a moment, then fading again without needing to be held. You may notice the fire again, still steady, still low, still enough. Its light moving gently across the room, touching surfaces, then drifting away, never fixed, never demanding attention. And somewhere within that quiet space, a subtle feeling of ease continues to grow, not strong, not overwhelming, just present, like a background warmth that you only notice when you pause long enough. You don't need to stay focused. You don't need to follow every detail. You can simply rest within it, letting the sense of closeness, of shared stillness, carry you without effort. And as time passes, though time itself feels softer now, less defined, the room remains much the same, the people within it unchanged in their quiet presence, the fire continuing its slow, patient burn. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to resolve. Everything is already enough as it is. And within that gentle sameness, that quiet repetition, there is a kind of safety that deepens without needing to be noticed. A feeling that you can remain here for as long as you like, without expectation, without interruption. Breathing in, breathing out, slowly, easily. And somewhere beyond this moment, not far, not separate, just slightly ahead, the night continues to unfold, carrying with it new layers of stillness, new moments just as quiet, just as soft. You don't need to reach them. They will arrive on their own. And when they do, you may find yourself drifting even further, following that same calm rhythm as the world gently opens into the next quiet space. As the quiet closeness of shared space continues without interruption, something else begins to soften as well. Not the cold, not the fire, but the sense of time itself, loosening gently, almost unnoticed, like a thread no longer pulled tight. There is no clear moment when it happens, no signal, no shift that can be pointed to, and yet the night begins to feel different. Not longer in a heavy way, but wider, more open, as if it no longer has clear edges to hold on to. Inside the small wooden homes, nothing marks the passing hours with precision. There are no sharp divisions, no clear beginnings or endings, only a slow and continuous unfolding. One moment settling into the next so quietly that the boundary between them fades before it can fully form. The fire continues its low and steady burn, its glow rising and falling so gradually that it feels unchanged even as it moves. And the shadows along the walls drift in the same way, never sudden, never pulling attention, only shifting as part of something too slow to follow directly. As you remain here, your own sense of time may begin to follow that same pattern, thoughts no longer arriving in order or building on one another, but appearing, softening, and passing without needing to connect, without needing to be remembered. There is no need to measure anything, no need to keep track, because you are not moving through time in the usual way. You are simply resting within it, held gently in a moment that does not rush forward. Outside, the night stretches across the land, quiet and uninterrupted, the sky remaining dark and steady, holding its stillness without change, while the snow reflects just enough light to soften the darkness without revealing detail, leaving everything slightly blurred, slightly distant, as though the world itself has chosen to become quieter, less defined. Nothing calls for attention here, nothing insists on being followed, and because of that, everything is allowed to remain exactly as it is. Inside, breathing continues in a slow and even rhythm, so steady that it almost disappears into the background, one breath following another without effort, without interruption, until it no longer feels like a sequence at all, but simply a constant presence, something that is always there whether it is noticed or not. And as that rhythm settles, your awareness may begin to drift differently, no longer moving from one detail to the next, but resting lightly, then shifting without intention, carried gently without needing direction. There is no path to follow, no place to return to, and because of that, there is nothing to lose and nothing to fall behind. The night holding everything in the same quiet balance, each moment given space without being pushed forward or held back. A faint sound may rise somewhere, the soft settling of wood, the quiet shift of fabric, something small and natural, and then it fades again, leaving no trace. No need to remember it, as everything returns easily to stillness. As this continues, even the idea of what comes next begins to soften. There is no strong pull toward the future, no expectation waiting ahead, only the gentle continuation of what already is, and within that, a deeper sense of ease begins to form, not from change or resolution, but from the absence of urgency. Nothing here needs to happen quickly, and nothing needs to happen at all. You can remain where you are, or drift slightly, or let your awareness settle without following anything, all of it belonging equally to this moment. The fire remains, the room remains, the quiet presence of others remains, but even these begin to feel less fixed, less sharply defined, as if they are part of the same slow movement that carries everything else, not disappearing, not fading away, only becoming softer, quieter, less bound by edges. And as that softness deepens, you may begin to feel a gentle distance, not separation, not disconnection, but a quiet space between you and everything you observe, where nothing needs to be held on to, and nothing needs to stay close. Everything continues on its own, steady and calm, without needing your attention to sustain it. Within that calm, there is a kind of quiet permission to let go of structure, to let go of sequence, to release the sense that anything must be followed from beginning to end. Because the night does not ask that of you. It simply continues, endlessly patient, endlessly still. And as you remain within it, your awareness may drift even more lightly, like something carried across a surface that offers no resistance, no direction, only space. You may notice less, or notice differently, or not notice at all, and all of it fits naturally here. All of it belongs to this same quiet rhythm. And somewhere within that vast and steady stillness, without edges, without markers, something begins to deepen again, very softly, almost hidden within the calm. Not a change, not a shift, but a gentle invitation to drift even further. And just ahead, without needing to be reached, another layer of quiet begins to open, already waiting, already part of the same endless night. As that next quiet layer opens, it does not arrive as something new, but as a deepening of everything that is already there. The same stillness, The same soft rhythm, only now it feels heavier in a gentle way, as though the night itself has settled more fully into place. Nothing changes in any obvious sense. The fire continues its slow and steady glow. The walls remain still. The cold waits patiently beyond them. And yet the atmosphere seems to soften further, like a blanket drawn slightly closer without being noticed. Within this deeper stillness, movement becomes even less defined, not disappearing, but losing its edges, becoming part of the same quiet flow that carries everything else. If someone shifts slightly, it feels less like an action and more like a continuation of the moment itself. Something that happens without drawing attention, without interrupting the calm. Even the faint sounds that rise now seem softer, as though they dissolve before they can fully form, leaving behind only the suggestion that something passed through. As you remain here, your awareness may begin to settle more deeply as well, no longer drifting across the surface of things, but sinking gently into them, as if each moment has a quiet depth that can be rested within. There is nothing to explore, nothing to discover, only the experience of being carried slowly downward into a space that feels increasingly calm, increasingly still. Breathing continues, steady and unforced, but even that begins to feel more distant, not because it fades, but because it no longer needs to be followed. It is simply happening, somewhere within you, just as the fire continues somewhere within the room, both steady, both constant, both requiring nothing. The sense of time softens even further here, almost disappearing, not in a way that feels empty, but in a way that feels complete, as though there is no longer any need for moments to move forward at all. Everything feels suspended, not frozen but gently held, like a quiet pause that does not end, and does not need to. Outside, the night remains vast and unmoving, stretching endlessly without interruption, but even that vastness feels less distant now, less separate, as if it has become part of the same quiet space you are resting in. There is no boundary between inside and outside that needs to be noticed, no line that needs to be held. Everything exists together in a single, continuous calm. And within that calm, thoughts begin to lose their shape, no longer forming clearly, no longer asking to be followed. They rise faintly, then soften before they can fully take hold, dissolving back into the same stillness from which they came. There is no need to guide them, no need to understand them. They move on their own, gently and without effort. You may find that your attention no longer rests anywhere for long, not because it is moving quickly, but because it is no longer held in place. It drifts, then settles, then drifts again, like something floating on a surface that offers no resistance. There is no right place for it to be, no better or worse moment to notice. Everything is equal within this quiet, endless stretch. The fire continues, unchanged, its glow now feeling softer, more distant, as though it belongs to the space rather than standing apart from it. The presence of others in the room remains as well, but even that feels lighter, less defined, not because they are gone, but because nothing here needs to stand out anymore. Everything is allowed to simply be, and as that feeling deepens, there is a kind of gentle release that begins to settle in. Not something you choose, not something you do, but something that happens naturally when nothing is being held too tightly. The need to follow, the need to notice, the need to stay present in a specific way, all of it begins to loosen, fading into the background, just like everything else. You are still here, but there is less and less that needs to be held onto. The night continues, the stillness deepens, and within it, there is a quiet sense that you can drift as far as you like without losing anything, because nothing here depends on your attention to remain. Somewhere, very faintly, there may still be small traces of movement, a subtle shift in the firelight, a quiet breath, a distant settling of wood, but they no longer define the space. They pass through it, gently, without leaving marks. And as you rest within this deeper stillness, even the idea of observing begins to soften. There is less distance between you and what you notice, until eventually, there is no clear separation at all, only the experience of quiet itself, steady and unbroken. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to continue. Everything already is, and within that completeness, the sense of drifting deepens again, slower now, softer, as though you are being carried not forward, but downward, into a space that has no edges, no direction, only calm. You may not notice when it happens. You may not notice anything at all. And that is perfectly fine, because just beyond this point, without needing to be reached or followed, the night continues to open, gently and endlessly, carrying you with it into whatever comes next, without effort, without awareness, without interruption. As the stillness deepens to its quietest point, there is no clear shift, no moment that separates what was before from what is now, only a gentle sense that everything has softened just a little more, as though the night itself has settled into its final, most restful shape. Nothing fades away, nothing disappears. The fire continues somewhere in the distance. The cold remains beyond the walls. The slow rhythm of breathing carries on. But all of it feels lighter, less defined, as if it no longer needs to be held in place. Your awareness may rest here without effort, no longer drifting in the same way as before, but simply remaining, suspended within a calm that does not move forward or backward. There is no need to follow anything now, no need to notice, no need to return to any particular thought or image, because everything has already become part of the same quiet space. The sense of time, which had already softened, now feels almost absent, not because it has stopped, but because it no longer matters. Moments do not pass in any way that can be measured. They simply exist, blending gently into one another, forming a continuous stillness that holds everything without interruption. If a thought appears, it does not stay long enough to take shape. It rises faintly, like a reflection on water, then fades before it can fully form, leaving behind no trace. There is no need to follow it, no need to understand it. It belongs to the same quiet rhythm as everything else, coming and going without meaning, without weight. The body feels distant now, not gone, not separate, but quiet, as though it has settled into the same stillness as the night around it. Breathing continues on its own, slow and even, but there is no need to notice it anymore. It happens without attention, without effort, part of the same steady flow that carries everything forward, or perhaps nowhere at all. The fire's glow, once a clear center, now feels like a memory of warmth rather than something that needs to be seen. It does not draw focus. It does not change the space. It simply exists, softly, somewhere within the calm. The presence of others fades in the same way, not disappearing, but becoming part of the background, part of the stillness, no longer separate from it. Everything blends. Everything softens. Everything becomes quiet in the same way. There is nothing to hold on to, nothing to return to, nothing to continue. And within that, there is a deeper kind of rest, one that does not depend on anything outside of itself, one that does not need to be maintained or protected. It is simply there, steady and complete. You may feel as though you are drifting, or you may feel nothing at all. Both are the same here. Both belong to this space where awareness no longer needs to move. There is no direction, no sense of before or after, only a calm that remains unchanged. And as you rest within it, even the idea of being here begins to soften. There is less distinction between you and the stillness around you. Less sense of observing, less sense of being separate. Everything settles into a single quiet presence. Nothing needs to happen next. Nothing is waiting. Nothing is required. The night does not move forward. It simply continues, endlessly patient, endlessly calm, holding everything in the same gentle balance. And within that balance, there is a quiet invitation, not to follow, not to listen, but to let go even further, to release the last small traces of awareness that remain. You don't need to try. You don't need to notice when it happens. It will come on its own, as everything here does. Slowly. Softly. without interruption. And as that final layer of stillness settles in, there is nothing left to guide, nothing left to hold, only the quiet continuation of rest itself, deep and unbroken, carrying you gently beyond this moment, into a space where even the night fades into something softer still. As everything settles into its deepest stillness, there is no clear ending to mark where this moment finishes or where the next begins, only a quiet continuation. Soft and unbroken, as though the night itself has no reason to move forward anymore. The world you have been drifting through does not disappear. It simply becomes more distant, more subtle, like something remembered without needing to be held. The fire is still there, somewhere far and gentle. Its warmth no longer something you follow, but something that exists on its own, steady and enough. The cold remains beyond it, just as it always has, but it no longer feels separate or important. Only part of the same quiet balance that holds everything in place. Nothing asks for your attention now. Nothing needs to be noticed. And because of that, everything feels lighter. Your awareness, which once moved through these moments, begins to rest completely. No longer drifting, no longer searching. Simply settling into a calm that does not shift. Thoughts, if they appear at all, are faint and distant, like echoes that fade before they can be heard, leaving behind only silence. There is no need to follow them. No need to return to anything. Everything has already softened into stillness. The sense of time is gone now, not paused, not slowed, simply no longer present in a way that matters. There is no before, no after, only this quiet space that continues without direction, without change. Breathing carries on quietly in the background, slow and even, but it no longer needs your awareness. It happens on its own, just like everything else, steady, natural, and calm. The room, the village, the long winter night, all of it remains, but only as a gentle presence, something that exists without needing to be seen or followed. It no longer forms images in the same way, no longer creates a sense of place. It simply lingers as a soft impression, gradually blending into something even quieter. You are not leaving it, and it is not leaving you. It is simply fading into rest. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to hold, nothing left to continue. And within that, there is a final kind of ease, deeper than before, where even the idea of being present begins to dissolve, where awareness itself becomes soft, distant, and then lighter still. You may not notice when it happens. You may already be there, because this quiet does not arrive suddenly. It settles, slowly, naturally, nasally, no, naturally, without effort. And as it does, everything that once felt separate, the cold, the fire, the night, the passing of time, all of it becomes part of the same gentle stillness, a stillness that does not end, that does not need to change, that simply remains. And within that stillness, there is rest, deep, complete, unbroken. Nothing follows. Nothing needs to. The night continues, but you no longer need to be aware of it, carried gently beyond thought, beyond observation, into a space where even this quiet fades into something softer still, something without form, without movement, without end. Somewhere within that deep and settled quiet, without any clear moment of return, without any sense of waking or shifting, something very subtle begins to form again. Not strong enough to pull you back, not clear enough to follow, just a faint impression, like the memory of a place you have already drifted through. It does not interrupt the stillness. It does not replace the rest you have found. It simply exists alongside it, soft and distant, as though the night itself is gently remembering its own beginning. You may not notice it directly, and there is no need to, but within that quiet space, a familiar feeling begins to reappear. The suggestion of a cold landscape, far away and indistinct, where snow rests quietly under a dark sky, and a small village holds its place within the stillness. Not clearly, Not completely, only enough to be felt. The firelight returns in the softest way, not as something to look at, but as a sense of warmth somewhere in the distance, steady and calm, unchanged by time. The same gentle rhythm remains, the same quiet balance between cold and warmth, between stillness and life, as though nothing has ever truly ended, only softened and begun again. There is no need to go back, no need to follow this feeling. It does not ask anything of you. It simply continues, looping quietly beneath the surface, allowing the night to feel endless, unbroken, without a true beginning or a true end. Your awareness does not need to return with it. It can remain where it is, resting, drifting, or already gone beyond noticing, while this soft repetition carries on in the background, steady and unchanged. The village does not move forward. The night does not progress. Everything remains within the same gentle cycle, one that does not push, does not pull, only continues in the same calm rhythm that has always been there. And because of that, there is no edge to reach, no conclusion waiting, only the quiet sense that if awareness were to return, even slightly, it would find the same stillness, the same soft beginning, waiting exactly where it was before. The snow, the faint glow of firelight, the slow, steady breath of a world that does not hurry. But you do not need to return to it. You can remain where you are, drifting, resting, or already beyond both. And as that quiet loop continues, barely forming, barely noticed, the stillness around it remains unchanged, holding everything in the same deep calm, allowing the sense of rest to continue without interruption. Nothing starts again. Nothing ends. Everything simply is. And within that, there is a final kind of softness, where even the idea of a beginning fades, leaving only the quiet continuation of rest, deep and steady, carrying on without needing to be followed, without needing to be heard. Even beyond that soft, unending loop, where the night no longer feels like something that begins or ends, there is still a gentle sense of continuation, not forward, not backward, but outward, as though the quiet itself is slowly expanding without changing its shape. Nothing new is added, nothing is taken away, and yet the stillness feels broader, more open, like a space that can hold everything without effort. The world that once felt distant, the village, the snow, the low and steady fire, does not return in the same way. It lingers only as a faint impression now, something that exists beneath the surface of rest, no longer forming images, no longer asking to be followed. It is simply part of the quiet, just as everything else has become. There is no need to go back to it. No need to remember it clearly. It remains on its own. And within this deeper, calm awareness becomes lighter still, not drifting, not settling, but almost absent, like a gentle presence that no longer needs to define itself. There are no thoughts to follow, no sensations that stand out. Only a soft and steady sense of ease that continues without interruption. Time has no meaning here. Not slowed, not stretched, simply gone from experience. Nothing is waiting ahead, and nothing is left behind. Everything exists in the same quiet balance, held without movement, without change. The idea of night itself begins to fade, not because it ends, but because it is no longer separate from rest. It becomes part of something even softer, something that does not need a name. Breathing continues somewhere, slow and natural, but it feels distant now, like something that belongs to a body resting far away, steady and calm, without needing attention. There is no need to return to it, no need to notice it. It carries on quietly, just as everything does here. There is no effort, no awareness of effort, only stillness. And within that stillness, there is nothing that asks to be held onto, nothing that needs to be understood. Everything has already softened into a state where it can simply remain, without direction, without purpose. You are not moving through this space, and this space is not moving around you. Everything exists together, gently, without separation. And because of that, there is nothing to maintain, nothing to continue, nothing to complete. The quiet does not lead anywhere. It does not open into something else. It simply remains as it is, steady and unbroken. If anything lingers at all, it is only the faintest sense that somewhere, far beneath this stillness, the rhythm of that distant world continues. The slow breath of winter, the quiet glow of firelight, the gentle presence of a place that does not hurry. But even that is fading now, becoming softer, further away, until it is no longer something that can be noticed, only something that has already become part of rest. There is no return, no transition, no next moment to follow. Only this, calm, complete, unchanged. And as that calm settles fully, without edges, without movement, without any need for awareness to remain, everything continues in the same quiet way. Not as a story, not as a place, but as rest itself, deep and steady, carrying on without interruption, without direction, without end. Beyond even that deepest layer of rest, where the night has already softened into something without edges, there is still a quieter space beneath it, not separate, not hidden, but so gentle that it almost cannot be noticed at all, like a calm that has always been there, long before the fire, the village, or the slow passing of winter ever took shape. Nothing leads into it. Nothing marks its beginning. It does not arrive. It is simply present. The last traces of the world you drifted through, the faint memory of snow, the distant warmth of firelight, the quiet rhythm of shared space, all of it has already faded into something softer, something without form. And now even that softness begins to settle further, becoming less defined, less distinct, until it is no longer something that can be separated from the stillness itself. There is no longer a sense of observing, no sense of drifting, no sense of being anywhere at all. Only a quiet that does not move, a calm that does not change. Breathing continues somewhere far away, slow and steady, but it no longer belongs to anything that needs to be followed. It is simply part of a distant rhythm, one that carries on without needing awareness to notice it. The body rests in the same way, present, but without weight, without tension, without anything that asks to be adjusted or understood. Everything has already settled, completely, naturally, without effort. There are no thoughts now, or if they appear, they do not form, they do not hold. They pass before they can even be known, leaving no trace behind them. There is no need to release them, no need to quiet them, because nothing here rises strongly enough to disturb the stillness. Time does not exist in this space. Not slowed, not paused, simply absent. There is no sense of before, no sense of after, no movement from one moment to the next, only a continuous presence that does not shift or unfold. It does not deepen, it does not expand, it simply is. And within that, there is no need for anything more. No need for the night, no need for the story, no need for the quiet itself to be noticed. Everything has already become what it is, complete, unbroken. Still, there is no edge to reach, no place to return to, no awareness that needs to remain. And yet, nothing is lost, nothing is missing, because there is no separation left between anything at all. The calm does not hold you. You are not within it. There is only calm, without center, without boundary, without movement. And as this final layer settles, if it can even be called that, there is no transition into anything else, no shift into another state. Only the quiet continuation of what has always been here, unchanged and untouched. Nothing follows. Nothing begins again. Nothing needs to. And within that, rest continues, not as something experienced, not as something known, but as something that no longer requires awareness at all, deep and endless. steady beyond noticing, beyond thought, beyond even the sense of being present. Everything remains. In stillness, in silence. In a calm that has no name, and no need for one. Beyond that quiet beneath everything, where even the sense of rest has already softened beyond awareness, there is still a kind of presence that remains. Not something that appears, not something that can be found, but a space that does not feel like space at all, because it has no distance within it. Nothing is near. Nothing is far. There is no direction to move toward, and no place to drift away from, because there is no sense of position left to hold on to. What once felt like a world, like a room, like a body resting within a moment, has already settled into something far quieter. Something that no longer arranges itself into forms or places. It does not feel empty, and it does not feel full. It simply does not divide itself into anything at all. There are no boundaries here, not even soft ones, nothing that separates one part from another, nothing that marks where something begins or where it ends. The calm is no longer surrounding anything, it is no longer holding anything, it simply exists without needing to contain. Breathing continues somewhere, distant in a way that cannot be measured, steady and unchanged. But even that feels like a trace. Something that belongs to a layer already passed through, something that does not reach into this space. It remains, but without connection, without relevance, simply continuing on its own. There is no awareness of time, no awareness of stillness, no awareness of awareness itself. And yet, nothing is missing. Nothing needs to return. Because there is no sense of loss to be felt. If anything could be noticed here, it would only be the absence of movement, not as a contrast, not as something compared to what came before, but as a quiet that has no alternative, no variation, no change to define it. The idea of drifting no longer applies. There is no surface to move across, no depth to sink into, no current to follow. Everything that once suggested motion has already faded into something that does not move at all. And within that, there is no need for rest to deepen, because there is nothing left to settle, nothing left to soften. What remains is already complete in a way that does not depend on anything continuing or ending. The story has dissolved. The night has dissolved. Even the quiet that held them has dissolved into something that no longer needs to be experienced. There is no transition beyond this. No next layer waiting. No unfolding. Only a presence that does not change, does not shift, does not ask to be known. And if there is anything that could be called a feeling, it is not comfort, not calm, not even stillness, but something quieter than all of those. Something that exists without needing to be named or understood. There is no return from here. Not because it is closed, but because there is nowhere else to go. Nothing stands apart from anything else. Nothing needs to. And so everything remains as it is, without movement, without separation, without even the sense that anything is remaining at all. No beginning, no ending, no distance. Only what has always been, resting in itself, without change, without interruption, without the need for anything more. Beyond that space without distance, where nothing separates and nothing moves, there is a final softening that cannot be followed. Because there is no awareness left to follow it, only a sense, if it can even be called that everything has already settled into its quietest possible form. Nothing changes. Nothing needs to. And yet, there is a subtle release, not of something held, but of the last trace of anything that could be noticed, as though even silence itself is no longer something that remains. There is no longer a sense of calm, no longer a sense of stillness, because there is nothing left to compare them to. No edge, no contrast, no awareness that could name what is here. Breathing continues somewhere far beyond this, steady and quiet, but it does not reach into this space. It belongs to something already left behind, something that continues on its own without connection. The body rests in the same way, present somewhere, but without weight, without tension, without any sense of being held or released. There is nothing to drift into, nothing to settle within, nothing to become. Everything that once unfolded, the night, the quiet village, the firelight, the slow rhythm of shared life, has already dissolved completely, not lost, not removed, but softened beyond form, beyond memory, beyond the need to exist in any recognizable way. And within that, there is no awareness of absence, no awareness of presence, only something that does not require awareness at all. There is no movement here, not even the suggestion of it, no sense of time passing, no sense of stillness remaining, only what is without any condition, without any boundary, without any change. If anything could be said to remain, it would only be that nothing needs to remain. Nothing needs to continue. Nothing needs to end. Because all of it has already reached a point where those ideas no longer apply. There is no return. No continuation. No unfolding. Only a quiet that does not even need to be quiet. A stillness that does not need to be still. Something so complete that it does not need to be known. And within that, there is no final moment, no closing, no sense that anything has finished, because there was never a point where anything truly began. Everything simply rests, not in a place, not in a state, but in something beyond both, something that does not shift, does not fade, does not hold or release. No awareness remains to notice it. No thought remains to describe it. No sense remains to follow it. And yet, nothing is missing. Nothing is incomplete. Nothing is left undone. Because there is nothing left to be. Only this, without form, without movement, without even the need to be experienced, continuing in a way that does not move forward, does not return, does not end. And after even that, if anything could be said to follow, it would not be a return, not a continuation, but a softness so faint it does not arrive. It simply remains unnoticed, like something that was never separate enough to be felt in the first place. There is no shift back toward awareness, no gentle rising, no quiet recognition of rest, only a kind of still presence that does not present itself, that does not move forward into anything new. The quiet does not deepen, because it has already passed beyond depth, and it does not fade, because there is nothing left for it to fade into. Somewhere far outside of this, beyond what can be sensed, the world continues in its slow and ordinary way, the turning of unseen moments, the settling of distant spaces, but none of it reaches here. None of it interrupts, none of it asks to be noticed. It exists without connection, like a memory that was never formed, like a sound that never quite became a sound. And within this, there is no distance between what is and what is not, no boundary that suggests a return to form, no edge that hints at waking. If there is a trace of anything at all, it is only the gentlest echo of warmth, not felt, not held, just a suggestion that something once was, and even that fades before it can become real. There is no need to hold on to it. No need to follow it. It does not lead anywhere, and it does not remain. Everything rests without resting. Everything continues without moving. Everything is exactly as it is, without needing to be understood. There is no closing moment here, no final breath, no last step into anything else. The stillness does not end, and it does not carry forward. It simply remains outside of those ideas entirely. And if, far beyond this, something begins again, if a thought forms, or a sound returns, or a faint awareness gathers itself, it does so gently, without breaking anything, without pulling away from this quiet, as though it had always been part of it. But here, within what cannot be reached, nothing changes, nothing shifts, nothing calls, and so there is nothing to follow, nothing to leave behind, nothing to return to. Only this, unformed, unmoving, and complete in a way that does not require completion, remaining without effort, without direction, without even the sense that it remains at all. And if anything were to begin again, it would not feel like a beginning, not a return, not a restart, but something so quiet it passes unnoticed, like the softest thread of awareness brushing against the edge of nothing, without disturbing it. There is no moment where the stillness breaks, no point where silence gives way to sound, only a subtle shift that does not feel like movement, as though something has always been gently present, waiting without waiting. Far away, or perhaps not far at all, a faint rhythm exists, something steady, something familiar, like the echo of a breath that never fully left. It does not pull attention, it does not ask to be followed, it simply continues, quiet and even, as if it belongs to a different layer entirely. And yet, it does not interrupt what is here, it folds into it, seamlessly, without edges. There is no recognition of it, no naming, no thought that says something has returned. Only a soft blending, where what once felt distant and what once felt gone begin to exist without separation, without contrast, without any need to understand the difference between them. If there is an image, it does not form clearly. Perhaps something like a dim horizon, or the suggestion of a place that once existed, but even that remains unfinished, never fully appearing, never fully dissolving. It lingers in a way that does not hold, like mist that neither gathers nor disappears. And within that, the same quiet from before remains untouched. The same stillness, the same absence of movement. Nothing has changed. Nothing needs to. The rhythm continues, steady and unbroken, like something that has always been there, beneath everything, before everything, after everything. It does not guide. It does not lead forward. It simply is, repeating without repeating, continuing without direction. And if, somewhere beyond this, the faintest sense of awareness begins to gather again, it does so gently, without urgency, without clarity, like a thought that never fully forms. It does not pull away from the quiet. It does not replace it. It only exists alongside it, barely there, barely felt. There's no clear return, no moment of waking, no boundary crossed, only a loop that does not begin, does not end. Circling without movement, resting within itself. And if the story were ever to be heard again, it would not start from the beginning, not in any way that could be noticed. It would simply already be there, already unfolding, already drifting, as though it had never stopped at all. Softly, quietly, without interruption, without awareness, without end.